4 wins and 4 losses for United so far in the league. Sam, how confused have you been by their start to the season?
I've been confused about them for 5 years, I think now. Going back to Jose and Paul Pogba bickering for what seemed like weeks on end. I don't know. There's clearly a load of talent, isn't there, in that dressing room? How much they're buying into the manager's methods, I think you could maybe question. I'm not talking maybe about his methods in terms of setting the team up on a match day, but maybe his demeanour on the training ground, the way that he's dealt with a couple of high-profile incidents, David De Gea, Jadon Sancho, to name a couple of things that have gone on.
Cristiano
recently.
Ronaldo as well.
Cristiano Ronaldo, although, I don't know, goals aside.
Your team, Ten Hag, on that one?
I can kind of understand. Yeah, I can kind of understand if you're wanting someone to get around a little bit more and lead from the front and stuff like that. And that's such a pivotal part maybe for some managers' blueprint now. When they're looking to attack a Premier League season, you don't really want someone that's coming towards the end doing that role. So I kind of got that. I didn't necessarily agree with the way he went about it, and I think that's problematic maybe to get the unity within the squad right now. I still feel that they'll probably turn things around and go on a run, whether it's going to be harmonious enough there to challenge the likes of City, Arsenal, Liverpool, the 3 we already mentioned, I doubt highly.
I think with the whole, going back to the Ronaldo situation just briefly, because, Ten Hag, for me, he faced a big challenge in Cristiano Ronaldo, someone whose status was far bigger than his own. And I actually think Ten Hag dealt with that pretty well in terms of setting the stall out. I'm the boss, not you. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter if you're one of the greatest of all time. I'm in charge here. But then I fast forward to sort of more recently, and I don't agree with the way he handled the Jadon Sancho situation. I didn't think he needed to make a public show of that, and I think that's impacted, at least within the dressing room at Manchester United. You mentioned David De Gea as well, who Erik Ten Hag was very quick to kind of move on from, but then brings in Andre Onana, who hasn't convinced in any way, shape or form. So, as you said, people are right to be asking questions of Erik Ten Hag now as well, aren't they? Because all we hear from United fans is it's the Glazers and it's the ownership and all the rest of it. They are problems, granted. But Erik Ten Hag has started to, I don't know, make me anyway doubt him. I mean, are you certain he can do the job at Man United? Is it too big for him? Is it a job that maybe is just too much for him at this stage in his career?
No, I don't know if it's too much for him, but I feel there's a lot of quality there, but there's been a bit of a mess made with some of the transfer dealings, I would say. So, listen, it's a luxury, isn't it, to kind of flash ahead and think that he's going to have the opportunity to build again and maybe add some quality players, but I probably believe they still need that in some areas of the pitch. I think some of the high-profile signings are probably going to prove to be mistakes, and when we look at the squads of others and look at the way that the Liverpool new signings have hit the ground running, it's difficult to align that with the way Manchester United are performing at the moment. And yeah, the spirit within the group doesn't seem brilliant. You want Rashford to be what he was last season. I think Mount is obviously been a little bit disrupted with 1 or 2 injuries, but he is yet to show any kind of form at Manchester United. The goalkeeper, I think, is a massive issue in enabling the defensive unit to have the confidence in the way that they want to play and they want to set up. If you haven't got confidence in your goalkeeper, I think it's a big problem, and he's clearly suffering with a little bit of confidence or form. So I think there's a lot of holes there, and that's not even touching on whatever's going on off the pitch. It's still a place that if they get 70%, 75% of it right in the home games, they'll take care of the business, as they showed last time out against Brentford. They'll still find a way because they have got game changers. I think the striker will score bucket loads. Højlund.
Yep.
I think he will score absolute bucket loads. I've seen enough within him already. I think Bruno Fernandes's performances have been pretty good in a disappointing start to the season. So those guys will bail them out of trouble if Erik Ten Hag is the man to change this around fully. I really doubt at this moment, but not to say I can't be proved wrong.
Yeah, I feel the same about Ten Hag. I think he had a good first season, generally speaking, but the longer you have, the more the pressure's there in terms of making sure you deliver, and the more of your players that you get in through the door, the higher the expectation. And I just wonder if now we've come to that point with Erik Ten Hag where, over the course of this season, we're going to see that a lot of the signings aren't working. the football's not really working, and I just wonder, if he's got a future at Manchester United for too long. You mentioned Spurs in the last part about how you're considering putting them into the title equation. Let me ask you this, Sam: if you were a Spurs fan, what would you rather? Win the FA Cup and finish 6th, or finish 4th but win no silverware?
It's marginal, but FA Cup.
FA Cup over Champions League.
I just think the stick to poke them with has got so I don't know what the terminology is. It's got longer and more aggressive over the last 10 years because they just haven't been able to get over the line in any competition. So yeah, they've got great history in that cup going back a few years here, but I think it would be a nice way for them to settle in under Ange Postecoglou and potentially grow to be title challenges in the years ahead. I mean, I'm jumping ahead here a little because I still feel it's probably a way off yet. But yeah, and that stadium, I wouldn't say it demands Champions League football, but it's the best stadium I've been to.
Agreed.
They'll want to get in the Champions League because of the money they've spent on it, and because probably the way they want to be perceived now in world football. But yeah, I think just the FA Cup still, and probably not every fan would hold that sentiment, especially the younger generation. But I think to get that elusive trophy, and if the manager could do it in his first season, if people aren't on board now, they fully would be after that.
Absolutely. I think the fans would pretty much unanimously go with the FA Cup because of the reasons you've mentioned. I think from the club's perspective, they'll look at the finances, and the Champions League will bring way more finance than winning an FA Cup. And that's a classic example of where sometimes fans' ambitions and hopes and objectives are not always in line with the clubs. Yeah,
it might be one of the first times in recent memory where I'm sure the goal would be to qualify for the Champions League this season, but they're so enamoured with the manager at the moment. Could they drop out of the Champions League places, win a cup this season, and still be fully behind a manager who essentially would have failed in achieving the club's goals? Because I'm sure it kind of has to be Champions League football, doesn't it? But I think for the fans, for the paying fans, and for the long-suffering fans that have been going there 20, 30 years, I say long-suffering, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking of some EFL clubs who would dream of a cup run to the latter stages. But I think for the Spurs fans, the cup maybe, and if they missed out, would it be a travesty? If they're playing this type of football and everyone's on board, it would be a disappointment, but it would be refreshing to see them stick with a manager who's getting so much right.
Yeah, absolutely.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.